What up? Good morning. Welcome back. Episode 4, week 2 of college basketball. College hoops, coast to coast with my man Kevin Sweeney. Kev, what up, man?
It's good to be here. Loving the new intro. We're looking good. We're looking clean. It's exciting. The season's certainly in full swing. Still depressed we didn't get Baylor Gonzaga, but plenty of fun matchups after a great week of games. So excited to dive in.
Yeah, that was a matchup of all matchups, of course. Almost like a potential national championship preview we didn't get to see, but postponed. They handled it with class. So today's show, we have 3 guests. We'll let you know those guys before they come on. 3 college basketball coaches that have either gotten off to great starts. We actually have an Ivy League coach that is going to come on and talk a little bit about the challenges that they're facing with the Ivy League and kind of their shutdown for the season. We are also going to give our first week and a half teams of the week per region. So this will be the first time we do that. So looking forward to that. So stay tuned as we go region to region and coast to coast. And then we always just have Kevin's expertise just bouncing off the wall. So feel always ask questions. Put your questions and comments in the chat. We will get to them as best we can throughout the show. We always want to make sure we get you guys included. And any headlines you want to talk about before we dive into coast to coast?
No, I mean, other than the Gonzaga-Baylor game, I think it was kind of as expected headline-wise. It's exciting and encouraging that it sounds like those teams are going to work out a way to play that game, hopefully this month. I know I tweeted that they should play on Christmas Day, which would be very exciting, but I know that both those teams have that whole week from the 21st to 29th open, so it wouldn't surprise me, just knowing what I know about the schedule, that it winds up somewhere in that realm. I know some people were throwing out maybe you could do it as a doubleheader with Louisville versus Kentucky on the 26th. That'd be appealing. Christmas Eve would be appealing. But I'm sure that that's the type of game we all want to see. And I think the coaches are motivated to get it done. So we couldn't have it on Saturday, which would have been a great showcase for the sport. Hopefully we get it soon. And otherwise, there's plenty to talk about the games that did happen this week, and there were certainly plenty of them.
Absolutely. So we'll dive into our regions now and go straight to Power 5. So within the Power 5, we did have some high-level matchups. We will start with – we'll let you pick what conference you want to start with today. I won't make you have to subject to my choices this time.
Yeah, that's tough. I think you'd start – I would start briefly with the SEC. We saw Florida get out to a quick start this week, beating Boston College and Army and Stetson in 3 games after getting out of quarantine. But I think the big story kind of remains the Kentucky situation. I think we all expected Kentucky to get out of the gate slow with a tough schedule and with so many young guys. I mean, they don't have a single player on this roster who played a game last year for them. But they're in trouble right now. I'm like, I trust John Calipari to figure it out. I really do. But there are some major structural problems. They have really bad point guard play right now. Devin Askew, the reclassified point guard, has not looked good. They're not playing together. Looks like Cal's really struggling to find lineups that work, playing with 2 bigs sometimes. And I'm not sure that's the move long term. It'll be interesting to see if he goes with Terrence Clark as more of a primary initiator. Something he did at Brewster Academy, something he did in AAU is that kind of big point guard, who can initiate and pair him with a shooter like Davian Mintz. Maybe that's the move. But right now, more questions than answered for the Wildcats. And, with a schedule that is as unforgiving as the schedule he's put together. I mean, they have Notre Dame this coming weekend. Notre Dame has struggled out of the gate, but still not an easy game. They have UCLA the week after that. They have Louisville the week after that before SEC play. At some point you're gonna have to win a couple of these ball games just to avoid the confidence from wearing off this group, because right now they just look listless and down the stretch they just didn't have any fight against Georgia Tech. I think that's really concerning. So we'll see how they move forward. But 1-3 start for Big Blue Nation is not what's expected down in Lexington.
Yeah, and I think that's the most probably disappointing part. We had Richmond associate coach on last week who was a part of the first upset, but then for Kentucky to kind of they had some chances. They really led against Kansas and had chances to kind of close that game out and just didn't. And then, as you spoke about, probably the part that's most disappointing and understandably so in some cases, but for them not to have fun in this last game against Georgia Tech and Georgia Tech is not like they were playing at a super high level going in. They had lost to both Mercer and Georgia State, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like they were playing at a super high level, even though every game you have to show up, of course. But the lack of fight is always a little bit concerning. But if anyone has kind of been through some of this controversial stuff before, it's almost like Cal embraces the controversy and he kind of thrives in it in his own way. I hope that those young guys can kind of rally behind him and buy in, because obviously we know he knows what he's doing. What else out of the SEC stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, we're still waiting to see Tennessee, which I'm really hopeful for. I want to give a shout out quick to Auburn's Justin Powell. I watched their game against South Alabama, and Richie Riley's club put up a really good fight. But they have a kid, Justin Powell. He's from Kentucky, and he is averaging 15.6 rebounds and 4 assists as a freshman. He was so good in that South Alabama game. He put up, I think he put 26 points on 7 of 9 from 3. 9 assists, and only 1 turnover at 6'6". This kid was like the 145th ranked recruit in the country, if I'm not mistaken. This kid is awesome. He reminds me so much of Kevin Herter, who was a guy I grew up around and watched him in high school, where he was playing point guard, and then he went to Maryland, was playing off the ball a little bit, turned into a first-round draft pick. I think Powell is a similar guy in the way he plays. I know someone I saw, Twitter, Mike O'Donnell, who does a terrific job doing broadcasting for ESPN and ESPN Plus. He threw out Kellen Dunham as a comparison. I like that one as well. But that kid really popped when I was watching him. I just wanted to give him some love, and I think he's gonna be an awesome player for Bruce Pro.
Yeah, great stuff. Anything else out of the SEC that really stood out that you'd like to mention before we move to the ACC? We'll go ACC next.
Now let's get right to the ACC, where obviously Duke took the loss early in the week against Michigan State. That's justifiable, but I think Duke, another team that's still figuring out who they are, sort of like Kentucky. They've got a bunch of new guys, and you could see the role allocation was maybe struggling a little bit. To be expected, right? I mean, less time in the summer, less contact practice. These are all things that are going to take time. Virginia continues to, squeak by. Offense was not impressive against Kent State. I think the more concerning thing, quite frankly, was the defense didn't look like a Tony Bennett defense. I mean, it looked like a Tony Bennett defense. They're still playing pack line. They're still getting stops, but it wasn't as overwhelming in that ball game against Kent State, and it wasn't that overwhelming against San Francisco. And I think part of that's losing a rim protector like Mamadi Diakite. Again, I think Virginia's gonna be fine, but they don't look like a top 5, top 8 caliber team that we projected them out to be in the preseason. I thought Carolina looked good, and Maui, they lost a close one at the Horn to Texas at the end of the Maui Invitational. But if they can continue to figure out that front court with Day'Ron Sharp, who's so impressive, the freshman, adding in with Baycott and Brooks, they're gonna be great. And RJ Davis is terrific at point guard. Otherwise, don't have a lot. I thought the other team I would shout out is Louisville. They've been really impressive. They beat Western Kentucky this week by 21. This is a Louisville team that's without 3 or 4 guys who people expect to be in the rotation. Their best big man, Malik Williams, a key guard in Charles Midland, who was really good at San Francisco, and they expected would start. He's been out for a while, and so they're playing a bunch of young guys, and then a grad transfer in Carlick Jones, and they've been really impressive to beat Seton Hall, to beat Western Kentucky. They're supposed to get tested against Wisconsin on Wednesday, although I know they had a positive case in the program, so it's unclear whether that game will go on. Hopefully it does. But Samuel Williamson also out, a guy that they thought could be a breakout guy, on the wing, and started strong, but then I think dislocated his pinky toe or something like that and couldn't play. So they're developing guys at a really high level, and they're going to be dangerous once they get everybody healthy. That's a very good Louisville basketball team under Chris Mack.
Yeah, you spoke about Louisville. There's a few other undefeated teams. That was a big win against Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky, a really good team out of the gate from Conference USA. Of course, we have Clemson's undefeated, 3-0. Virginia Tech's probably been one of the surprises in the league. Has done a good job getting out of the gate and playing really good basketball. Wake Forest, the new coach Steve Forbes, is 2-0. The Wolfpack is 3-0. Syracuse also, Florida State finally got out of the gate and played a game, got their first win. So there's a lot of good basketball being played here. Duke is probably one of those teams similar to Kentucky in some ways, obviously showing more fight, but had a loss to Michigan State. Coppin played them close. They came out and got another win, but they haven't looked impressive or very overwhelming at this point just yet.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with you.
So we'll move on to the Big 12. Talk a little bit about, you mentioned Texas. Texas had some big matchups. Won the Maui Invitational. Congratulations to Texas on that. And then had a huge matchup just the other night that I'll let you kind of segue into and then talk about the rest of the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with them at Maui. Their defense was really good in the final two games. I thought that they really locked in on that end and have bought into an identity of being willing to compete. Fran Fraschilla was talking about it yesterday in their game against Villanova, but he kind of joked that early in the Shaka era they were a tuxedo program. They were a little bit soft, and they had a bunch of these one and done guys, and maybe the focus was a little bit on the league. And right now they've gotten some blue collar guys in there. Right, you have a senior like Jericho Sims and Matt Coleman. Those guys are tough kids. Kai Jones is ready to work. Royce Hamm and Brock Cunningham have turned into awesome glue guys for this group. Greg Brown even, I think, really fits the mold of that blue collar, working man's basketball player. Such an athlete, plays super hard. So, to win Maui's huge. They're really competitive against Villanova. Really locked down Villanova at times. I thought that, Villanova really needed Gillespie. When he was on the floor, Villanova was able to find offense, but when he was not, they really struggled. And so, I think this is a really good Texas team. I think it's probably a top 15-ish caliber team in the country. So I was very, very impressed. I also thought that Oklahoma getting the first conference win of the year, they beat TCU in an early conference game. Austin Reeves was awesome. That's a big time win for them on the road. Road wins were so tough to come by in this league last year. So whenever you can get a road win in the Big 12, you got to take it. And winning on the road at TCU is a big one. Yeah,
Austin Reeves was extremely impressive with his performance. And that's their first game, one of their early games. Oklahoma hasn't played a lot of games. They've been shut down as much as anyone. So TCU's also played well, but it was a good hard-fought game. But, yeah, that's a big win for Oklahoma to kind of get off the gate and get a win early on. Kansas, obviously, we talked about them, the big win against Kentucky on the big stage. They've played well and kind of got themselves going a little bit after that Gonzaga loss that they had early in the year. A lot of new faces for Kansas, so that's to be expected. Texas Tech has kind of gotten themselves going again this week after losing to Houston at the end of last week on Sunday. We know they'll continue to get better and better, but they look like they're going to be a team that's a force to be reckoned with. Baylor's probably the talk of this league right now with their big win against Illinois. It was a top 5 matchup. They've played at a high level. We all wish they would have played Gonzaga so we could have seen that, but they did play another top 5 team in Illinois and really beat them convincingly. It was a hard-fought game, kind of back and forth for a while, and then Baylor kind of separated, never looked back, and really looked dominant.
Yeah, and then one more team I would love to shout out is Oklahoma State. Start 4-0 under Mike Boyden is huge, and they got a really good win. They went to Marquette, went up to Milwaukee, and won that game. Marquette team that then turned around and beat Wisconsin, who's ranked in the top 5. I still think it's going, there's going to be bumps along the way for this team as they figure out, role allocation. But they got 16 in that game from Rondell Walker. They got 13 off the bench from Bryce Williams. If those two guys can give them something off the bench, I think also Matthew Alexander-Moncrief, the Canadian big guy, will also be critical in this. If they can get stuff from those 3 guys off the bench, this is going to be a really, really tough Oklahoma State team in a crowded Big 12.
Yeah, and they've done a great job, and they play ORU coming up, followed by Wichita State, and then go their first conference game at versus TCU, and then Texas. Yeah, I'm a huge Mike Boyden fan. I have no problem saying that. I coached against him when I was at Lamar, and he was at Stephen F. Austin. First-class guy. Have a connection, of course, with Isaac Likely from my time at Fresno and him originally signing there and being a Dallas kid. And they just have a chance to really do some things with this roster. My biggest thing, and I said this last week pretty loud and clear, I don't know exactly where it stands as of right now, if they're tournament eligible or not. But they need to be. They need to be in the tournament. There needs to be no question about it. They have a first-class organization, great kids, high-level players. Obviously, they have a potential number 1 draft pick as well, and he's only going to be there for a year, and he deserves to be in the tournament, and no doubt those kids do too, and so does the staff. So big shout-out to Oklahoma State on their great start, and hopefully they can keep that thing rolling and put some pressure on the NCAA to do what's right. Let's move next to which league you want to go next? We got 2 left. We got Pac-12. You want to go them?
Yeah, why not? Let's do the Pac-12. I thought that Utah was pretty impressive in their opener. They played a conference game to open the season because they had a COVID shutdown. An early conference game against Washington. I thought they looked really good. Alfonso Plummer, the senior guard, can really shoot the ball. He had 4 threes in this ball game. That was huge for them. They have a really good scorer in Timmy Allen on the wing. I think it's going to be critical for them to get stuff from their bench. Guys like Pell Larson and Ian Martinez and Riley Batten. I think if those guys can be consistent, this is a very good team. On the other hand, Washington is very much moving in the wrong direction. Sitting here now 0-3 on the year to start the year. Their best player in the preseason in Isaiah Carter is officially dismissed from the team. Eric Stevenson, the Wichita State transfer, has not lived up to the hype. Guys like Raekwon Battle haven't taken the step I think people hope for. So this team is right now, it's quad A green and a bunch of mediocre parts. And we'll see if they turn it around. But it's kind of remarkable that Washington is where they are, given what we thought the program was headed towards 2 years ago when they were in the NCAA tournament, had 5 stars coming in the following year, et cetera. Not much to say about Arizona State. They had a pretty run-of-the-mill week. Oregon goes and splits a pair in Omaha, lose to Mizzou, and then turn around and beat Seton Hall. They got the waiver for LJ Figueroa midweek. That was big for them. He's a big, 6'6" kid who can defend multiple positions and really, I think, thrive in a second or third scorer role. I think the big news with them was watching Eugene Omoruyi. He was a transfer from Rutgers. At Rutgers, he was this big bruising 4-man who, fit into the Steve Peichel mold of, really grinding you out and being physical and couldn't really shoot. And he comes out at Oregon. He's a completely different guy. He looks skinny. He's explosive. He's running, jumping. He's knocking down threes. He's dunking. He's blocking shots. I mean, it was impressive to watch. He looked like an NBA prospect. But he certainly looked like a game changer for this Oregon team. So that's a huge add, and this team will be very good. I know they got to get Will Richardson back healthy. He's critical, but they've got some pieces.
Yeah, the LJ Figueroa one is a good one for Oregon State. For Oregon. Look forward to seeing kind of how that whole thing evolves. They have the talent that could make some noise at the top of the league. Oregon State did take a tough one to Wyoming, so shout out to Wyoming. I know that's not a great thing for Oregon State, but a good Wyoming team, and look forward to kind of seeing what Wyoming continues to do. They started league play, Oregon State too. They're also down 0-1 right now. Washington State is probably the team 3-0 right now that people didn't expect, and as is Colorado 2-0. Colorado does not have a conference win. Washington State does have one. Talk a little bit about the Cougars, if you don't mind. Just kind of any sprinkles that you can kind of fit in. They did beat Oregon State in that 59-55 kind of high-scoring, high-performance game, but it was a grind, but they figured out a way to get the win. So what would you say about the Cougars so far as they kind of sit in a good position early in the year?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing when you're in a rebuild like they are is, take care of business at home and take care of business in your bye games. And they don't actually go on the road until January the 7th. They have a massive run of bye games here coming up against, I think, 5 straight bye games after that early conference win. And they have a home weekend against Arizona State and Arizona. And, Kyle Smith's never going to go and get McDonald's All-Americans coming to Washington State. But, the recruiting cachet he can gain by a $500 a year or an NIT bid would be, it would be huge. And, they're going to have to replace Isaac Bonton after the year, who's their, kind of high usage point guard. If they can win some games and get some recruiting buzz, it would be massive. And winning a conference game early on against an Oregon State team that I think is going to struggle all year long is big time. They're getting stuff from some young guys like Noah Williams and DJ Rodman, and once those guys continue to develop, I think they'll be in good shape. I think Kyle Smith's going to win games there. I think he has the right mentality for a job like Washington State, which is one of the tougher ones in the high major world. And so getting the conference win early is a good start.
Absolutely. Let's shift from Power 5. We're going to go. We do have a guest coming on soon, so get ready for him. But let's go to the Southeast region next, and just kind of talk a little bit about that. We'll jump in the Southeast region. Let's go straight to let's go Big South. talk a little bit about that real quick, if you don't mind. I'll let you lead the way on that one.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I think Winthrop is the big storyline so far. They got off to a little bit of a late start, started on Tuesday, beat UNCG, a potential top 100 team, a potential NCAA tournament team, a team that won the SoCon last year and is really, really tough. Or no, they didn't win the SoCon. They come in second in the SoCon, excuse me. But they've been consistently at the top of the league. They win 20 games every year. That's a big time win. They turn around, they beat Little Rock, one of the favorites in the Sun Belt, won the Sun Belt last year. So that says a whole heck of a lot. And to make matters even more impressive, they were without two guys for what I believe were COVID related. I think there was a contact tracing issue that they had. And so they were without two guys who could have started, in Russell Jones and Chase Claxton, two really very dangerous kids who can really help this group. So they're playing 10 guys anyway. They're very deep. They're very, very athletic. They have a good big man in DJ Burns, who's a load to deal with on the inside. They have a big point guard, Chandler Vaudrin, who has, I think, 15 assists and 2 turnovers in 2 games. Adonis Arms, the JUCO guy, or not the JUCO, the D2 transfer, can really score the ball. So they're in really good shape. And, are those wins that are going to move the needle from an NCAA tournament perspective? Probably not, unfortunately. But, they have, can they win their league? They absolutely will. I think they're going to win that league. They have Furman coming up in a non-league game in a week and a half. That's a very exciting game. Furman's a very good team. So I'm really excited to see where this thing goes.
Yeah, and I didn't actually we ended the Power 5 segment and didn't talk about our 2 teams that we chose for Team of the Week. So we'll talk about that real quick. We actually didn't even mention one of them very in depth, so we'll get a quick opportunity to do that. Our 2 teams of the week out of this region. And we did 2 because it's been a week and a half to start the season. Normally it'll just be 1. But our 2 teams are Michigan State and also Baylor. So I'll let Kev talk a little bit about them real quick before we go back to the Southwest region.
Yeah, I think, first of all, Michigan State beating Duke on the road at Cameron, that's a heck of a win. They struggled through a couple of bye games. It's not necessarily surprising. They're deep. They're athletic. Sam Hauser has been unbelievable. Not Sam Hauser. Wow. Joey Hauser. Sam Hauser, Virginia. Joey Hauser, his brother, Michigan State. Very good player. Is really, I think, fit in with what Tom Izzo wants to do because he can space the floor, but he can also handle the ball. He can grab and go off of rebounds and push and transition, which is particularly important because they don't necessarily always play with a true point guard. They're playing Rocket Watts there, who's more of a scoring guard. So they're in really, really good shape. I think this is a team that I like to be a top 5 team in the country. And then certainly with Baylor, missing out on that second quality win opportunity, but the win over Illinois was really impressive. You could see how locked in they were on the defensive end, and that was just so impressive to me. Particularly down the stretch, and whenever they needed a stop, they had one. Their big guy, Jonathan Chachua was terrific. Adam Flagler, the Presbyterian transfer, continues to give them, a ton off of the off the bench, and so I'm really excited about where this Baylor team's going. I think they would have beaten Gonzaga on Saturday if that game had gotten played.
Yeah, they are in a place where they really haven't missed a beat from last season. I mean, they were so dominant again in that Washington game as well, just playing at such a high level. And then again, the Illinois game was kind of back and forth, and then they just really separated and showed how dominant they were defensively. And they have multiple guards that can make plays. Mark Vital is as unique of a Swiss Army knife of a player as you can find. And then they always just kind of figure out some bigs to be super productive for them. And they just seem like they're gelled in all mid-season form right now, which is really hard to do given the circumstances of everything that's going on with COVID. So shout out to both Michigan State and Baylor, Coach Drew and Coach Izzo and their staffs for being recognized for Team of the Week out of Power 5. And then as we kind of go back to that Southeast region, we talked one conference. Let's jump to the ASUN next.
That's a good one. Lipscomb nearly got an awesome win over Cincinnati. They were leading late and then folded down the stretch. Cincinnati made some big plays. I think that kind of took a toll on them, and they came out and got, quite frankly, they got pistol whipped by Arkansas. They got handled. They lost by 36, and that says a lot about Arkansas. But I think Lipscomb's going to be good. They're going to be a tough team to beat in that conference. I think obviously Liberty has been impressive, and they beat St. Francis team that beat Pittsburgh early in the year. So that's the type of start you're looking for. Otherwise, there've been a lot of non-D1s getting wins. I know Kennesaw finally got some D1 action. They played UAB and Creighton. It didn't go so well. Obviously, those are two very good teams, so I don't blame them certainly. And I think they'll figure it out. Jacksonville got a couple wins against Southern Miss and Presbyterian. It's a nice start for them. And shout out to the D1 newcomers at Bellarmine. They beat Howard on Sunday after losing to Duke in the opener at Cameron. So I think you take that if you're Scott Davenport and the program they're trying to build there with a bunch of experienced guys who came in from the D2 level where they were very successful program.
Yep, absolutely. Let's shift. Go ahead and shift straight to the MEAC real quick. What stood out to you out of the MEAC, and who's playing well?
Yeah, I mean it's been an interesting start. I think some teams have been maybe dealing with some COVID stuff, but I thought that I was impressed. I thought that North Carolina A&T was pretty competitive early on in the. They went to the tournament out at Champaign, and they competed in week 1, played a close game against Ohio. They got beat pretty handily by Stanford, but it's pretty cool for them to get a home game against Stanford. Obviously, it was COVID-driven because Stanford can't play in their home state, so they stuck around in Asheville after the Maui Invitational and wound up playing a road game at NC A&T. So that's cool for them to get to host a game like that. Otherwise, it's just it's tough sledding. Teams are looking for wins. Teams are trying to get some, maybe trying to get some buy game money in as well. I know Morgan State's playing Iona this week. That'll be a good game. I know we're going to talk about Iona a little bit later, so that'll be a good test for them. But it's that time of year where you got to get ready for conference play. I think these teams are getting battle tested from it.
Absolutely. We're going to shift. We got a special guest coming soon. We'll talk Southern Conference real quick, and then we will bring on our special guest. What stood out to you with the Southern Conference so far, and kind of the play you've seen out of that league?
Yeah, I mean, awesome start for Furman, who's out to a 4-0 start. And they blew out College Charleston, which is very impressive. It's a really good program, and I think Furman's going to be a factor in this league race. And Bob Ritchie does a terrific job. Mercer out to a 5-0 start. We're going to talk about them in a couple moments here. But we also got to shout out, Western Carolina, 5-1 start the year. Mark Prosser's doing an awesome job, and they won on a buzzer beater yesterday by their star point guard Mason Faulkner, who wound up with 23 in the game and 6 assists. So he's a fun guy to watch play. So he hit an unbelievable shot, step back 3 at the horn to bury the hearts of Tennessee Tech. So a big time win to stay 5-1, and their only loss was that early neutral court game against Troy.
Yeah, so we look forward to our special guest. I'll give him a good intro, hopefully, here in just a minute. Look forward to having him on, man, and someone I know pretty well. But look forward to talking to him and hearing more about the Mercer Bears. So we'll be back in just a second.
Thank you for joining us for the All Access Coaches Corner podcast. We are so excited to continue serving coaches, sharing their stories, and spotlighting their programs. Stay connected as we bring you more special guests and more real conversations covering all aspects of the game. You can find our show on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you like to get your podcasts. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at allaccess_CC. Subscribe to the All Access Network YouTube channel and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
Well, we got a special guest here, Bobby Coomer from Mercer, a guy I know very well who I worked with for 3 years at Lamar, was recently voted the #1 assistant coach in the Southern Conference. Year 2, Mercer. What's up, BK? How you doing, man?
I'm good, Coach Burton. How you doing?
It's good, man. Good to see you, man. Congrats on a great start to the year. I'll let Kevin kind of tip this thing off, and I'll get out of the way for a little bit.
Yeah, Coach, appreciate you hopping on. I think my first question, we've heard a lot all offseason about, first-year coaches and things that they're dealing with in the pandemic. But, given how important that year 1 to year 2 is for programs as you're trying to build a culture and you're trying to establish something, what have been your takeaways from working through that process this year? And obviously you guys have done a pretty good job of it with a 5-0 start.
It is challenging. You just want to keep the guys engaged. That's the biggest thing we felt like we had to do. We've been fortunate, knock on wood, that we've been pretty healthy. So we've been able to practice every day, and I think that's a huge key. Where some schools are struggling right now because their practices are just so much in flux. You got guys that haven't practiced in 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden have to come out and play a game in 3 days, and that's really difficult to do. But we've been fortunate, like I said, we've stayed healthy. Uh, we've got a good group of kids. We had 3 guys sit out last year that are very good players for us. So they've been in the system, and they kind of know the expectations of what we're looking for.
Yeah, obviously the offense has been clicking on all cylinders. 79 points or more in every single game so far this season, including I think 86 in the big win over Georgia State. The shooting is what really pops out. How are you guys able to get so many looks for shooters? And they've certainly been able to knock them down so far, haven't they?
Well, Greg's offense is really good. We're running very similar stuff that they ran at Purdue. I mean, he kind of ran the offense at Purdue. So we're doing the same actions here. And, the one thing when we first started working for him, we figured out real quickly he likes shooters. So that's something we really try to recruit because that fits his system very well. And when we can create the spacing like we've had, and our guys have been very unselfish at sharing the basketball. And that's one thing we talked about. It doesn't matter who scores the ball. Let's just get the best shot possible. And let's put these guys in position where they're going to get open looks because we feel confident they're going to knock it in.
And how much has Alvarez, adding him at point guard, how much has that impacted your offense this year? Obviously, he was a guy that I was very familiar with at Fairfield, could really score, really shifty. How has he taken to running a team for you guys?
He's done a very good job. I think the best thing that's helped him with him having to sit out last year and actually being a part of the system but not fully thrown in the system. So he's got his feet wet with it. So this isn't brand new for him. And he just brings a tremendous amount of speed of what we didn't have last year. His athleticism on both sides of the ball. He really defends well. He can get up and pressure you, but then he's also able to get the ball, get us in our offense quicker. And, that's the key with the point guard. If he can start your offense quicker, get you into stuff, man, he just sets the tone for the rest of those guys.
I'm going to jump in here, BK. Obviously, know you well. You were the associate head coach when we worked for Coach Price, and we had to change the culture. Let's be very direct. They had won 4 games when we came in. I think Coach is on an average of like 20 wins a year now over at Lamar. So tell us, what have you taken? You've been a part of other programs as well. You specifically in your role there at Mercer, and then how has Coach done such a good job, similar to Coach Price, and just turning it around so fast? I mean, I think that's the part where people would have expected Coach Gary to do great things. He comes from Purdue. He's been successful where he's been, but to do it in such a quick amount of time. You guys won last year, and it was kind of like one of those like, okay, well, they're winning a little bit ahead of what we thought. But now you guys are off to such a hot start and have had such great wins and playing such high-level basketball. What can you speak kind of about that?
Well, with Greg, it's very simple. There's no gray areas. And his big thing he always talks about it with our guys is just do your job. Whatever your job is, you do your job. If your job is to screen, if your job is to rebound, if your job is to shoot, if your job is just to play hard every day and practice, do your job and great things will happen. He's not a guy that has a ton of rules. He keeps it very simple. He's very direct. There's not a whole lot of mind games played. We all played ball on our staff. Kim Lewis played at Tulane. DJ Bird played at Purdue. Greg played at Tulane. I played at Charlotte. And so he's kind of kept it like, hey, let's keep it like when we played. We want to be around coaches that we, enjoy being around, and we want to have guys that, we enjoy being around. And let's just get some good dudes. Let's play hard and do our job, and we're going to win some games.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Talk a little bit about, BK, about your team. What's made this team well? I know you talked about the 3-point shooting. Kevin talked about you guys averaging almost 80 points a game in the games you played so far. Obviously, you guys can really score, and Coach has brought a system from Purdue. But what is it that's made your team good? Talk a little bit about some of your personnel or some of the things that you think has allowed you guys to have so much success.
Well, we do. We have multiple guys that can go for, big nights. That's the one exciting part of this team. Ross Cummings is a really, really good player for us. He set out last year. He's got a chance to be this all-time leading three-point shooter. He puts tremendous pressure on the defense. He really, really opens the floor. Neptali, who we touched on, their point guard, just great speed. Another guy, he's shooting the ball at a pretty good clip right now. He really worked on that this offseason. And then Felipe Haase, he's a transfer from South Carolina. He's a 4-5 man that, again, shoots the ball 45% from the three-point line. And, again, it just opens up so much space for our guys. Magic Bender, a 6'11 kid playing inside, it gives him more space to work. And then you had, Jeff Gary. He was considered one of the most underrated players in the SoCon last year. He's shooting over 40%. I think he's shooting close to 50% from the three. And then we added the kid Leon Ayers, junior college kid that came from Michigan. Doesn't shoot it as well as those guys, but he's one guy that can go get basket. So we feel like we have 7 or 8 guys, when we bring them up, even bring the guys off the bench, that we can put pressure on the other team's defense because we do have multiple weapons.
Now, BK, most people don't know this. We were a really good player at Charlotte, and we had a kid back at Lamar named Nick Garth, and he was the best shooter, the all-time three-point makes at Lamar. And I don't know that he can outshoot you. So can any of these guys outshoot you? Is the real?
Yeah, they get me. They get me every time. It's not even close. Those days are long gone, man. Long gone. When the ball leaves their hand, you just feel confident that it's going in. We're playing with good confidence right now. And we have a huge, conference starts for us against VMI this week, and it's a really, really difficult place to play. We were able to sneak by there last year. We had a shot at the buzzer, and we're going to have to play well. Whenever conference starts, everybody kind of steps up their game. This is great. It's a great start, but we've got to start playing. We've got another tough stretch coming our way. Going to BMI, we go to Georgia Southern, we go back to Georgia State, we go to Kennesaw State. So it's going to be a kind of a road warrior mentality, and we'll see how tough we are, and see how we handle the different adversity as we go through the stretch.
For sure. Talk a little bit, Coach. Just how is this? We all know it's been challenging and different challenge for everybody. This COVID season and how you manage it, how your guys have done. I mean, it's hard to win alone one game. We know that as coaches, but to be able to get a 5-game winning streak to start the season and all this uncertainty and scheduling and everything else, just talk a little bit about just how you guys have been able to manage that so successfully, because it is a challenging thing.
It is. And like I said, I think the biggest thing for us is we've been able to practice. I think we've missed maybe 2 practices this year where we thought we had something, but we were fortunate that the test was wrong. So it worked out well for us. And we have good seniors. I mean, we have good returners. So they've helped keep our guys focused. When you're young, it's sometimes hard to do. But when you have older guys that can kind of control that locker room for you, I think sometimes that carries a lot of weight. So we've had good success with that. And this has kind of been our first taste of it this week. We were supposed to play Elon, and that game got canceled. They had a positive test, and we were able to fill in a game on Saturday. And, we weren't really dialed in at first. And, we fortunate enough, our talent overtook some things. But then we changed our game on Sunday. I think that was the 3rd team that we ended up playing that we had, not originally scheduled. So again, just keeping their focus on it. I think the older guys have helped us with that. This is the importance of you got to be locked in at all times.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So going forward, we know you guys are playing well. The conference is as tough as ever. Always is when you get in conference play. Anything in particular that, obviously we know you guys have an older team, and some of those guys that are back are going to lead the way. Anything just particular going into conference play and kind of the rest of the season that you guys are kind of focused on, or is there a theme? Is there something that you guys are kind of locked into to keep your guys extra motivated, or is it just kind of taking one game at a time?
It's with Greg. It's one game at a time. We don't even talk about the next game. Right now we were talking about Southern Wesleyan last night, and today it's been all about VMI. That's all we talk about. It's the next game. Let's put ourselves in a position to be successful. And like I said, the biggest thing is, like I said, he keeps it very simple. Do your job. If everybody does their job, we're going to put ourselves in a position to have success. And it's worked so far. It worked last year, so I think we're going to keep sticking with it.
No doubt.
But
No
you're
doubt.
right. No, our conference is very good. I mean, Furman is outstanding. Greensboro is very good. Chattanooga is good. Wofford. So you can go down the lines. I mean, Sanford had a huge win at Belmont. Um,
Yep.
the Citadel's better this year than they were last year. VMI took Virginia Tech to the brink. I mean, it's a all-around good basketball conference that you have to come and play every day. And if you don't, you're going to lose. I mean, it's very good basketball.
For sure. For sure. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, all right? You can tell a funny story about myself or anybody else that you've worked with, but just give us one funny college basketball story. Obviously, there's a lot of stressful stuff going on and wins and losses. You've done this for a long time. You're a wily veteran. You've been at Charlotte and A&M and Lamar and App State. You've kind of been across the country. Tell us just one funny either recruiting story, coaching story, and then we'll let you go.
Man, there's a
I
bunch.
put you on the spot.
I have to think about this one for a second. Yeah, you did. You did. This is a few we can't talk about on live. I mean, on live here because
Of course.
we'll get some dudes in trouble. But just I guess just the different personalities that you think, some different people that you worked with that you're like, you would never expect it. Kind of when you see them behind the scenes, just when they let their guard down, just when the personalities come out, it is pretty funny. I don't I've got to think of a few.
I'll give you one kind of off the hook. So tell everybody I don't know if you still do. You have a tradition that you used to do every year, showing off a little bit of your that white man can jump after all. So tell everybody a little bit about that, and you still do that.
I've had to stop. I haven't been able to do it anymore. I used to be able to dunk every day, the first practice of every season, and that tradition has kind of went away since I turned 6. Last year, man, it wasn't so good. It was ugly. This year, I didn't even attempt it. I was afraid I'd shoot my kneecap across the floor. So these past 2 years, no, I haven't been able to throw it down anymore.
That's all right. That's all right, man. Well, thanks so much, man, for coming on. Congratulations to the early success. I think it's awesome that, you get recognized as an assistant coach with Top Connect. You've been recognized as one of the top assistants in the country. And then for your peers to vote you as the #1 assistant in the league. And you're the new coach of the league. That normally doesn't happen. They normally give it to a vet. So a lot of respect to you, Coach. I love you, man, and great to have you on. And we'll let you have any last words you want to say, and then we'll let you run.
I appreciate it, man. It's really nice of you to say. We got a great staff here, that's for sure. I mean, we're all just dived in together. We're just trying to put the best team on the court that we can, and just be good dudes. That's what we said. Be a good dude and be a great teammate, and things will work out well. And hopefully, everybody can keep staying safe, and we can keep playing ball. That's for sure.
Absolutely, man. Well, tell the missus, tell Coach E, keep the great work. We look forward to continuing to support you, man. Good luck the rest of the way, BK.
You got it, man. Thank you.
Yep, thank you, man. Well, we just had Bobby Coomer on from Mercer. He doesn't even know this, but they'll be recognized as one of the teams of the week in this region. I'm getting ahead a little bit, but since we just had them on, they get the nod for one of the spots. We'll save the last one, spoiler alert, for the end of the Southeast region. Really just one conference left to talk about, Conference USA. Anything out of Conference USA that just kind of stood out to you or what you'd like to speak about?
Yeah, I mean, Western Kentucky, couldn't beat Louisville. I think there was a lot of hope that they could get that win, and that would almost lock them in for an at-large. But they still have some opportunities coming up. They have Rhode Island before league play, and Rhode Island's a good team. That's a win that could move the needle potentially for them. And already got the Northern Iowa and Memphis wins in the non-league. So, that's a good start and on the right track. I think we should show some love to Andy Kennedy and job he's doing at UAB. Look, I mean, they've beaten Alcorn State, Southeastern Louisiana, Kennesaw State, and Troy. And when you're at UAB, you should win those games, no doubt. But he's won them all. He's won them very convincingly, all of them by 20-plus points. He's got a non-D1 coming up, and then starts getting real tested with ETSU coming up, Georgia Tech coming up, and then conference play. And when you're building it, they added some grad transfers, and they've been successful. I think they added a big kid, Trey Jemison, who's 7-footer from Alabama, went to Clemson and comes back home, gets a waiver. he's been terrific. He's shooting 67% from the field, 80% from the free throw line, which for a 7-footer is huge. He's blocking shots at a really high level, so he's been a difference maker. Got him in with the guards that they have, and obviously, Coach Kennedy is known for loving guards and developing guards. Yeah, they're in really good shape, and I think they could be a factor in this league without a doubt. Also, give some love to Middle Tennessee. They go get a win against Murray State. That's not a win that you normally see from a team in a rebuild, and so Nick McDevitt getting a big one, and then 4-0 FIU, another team that hasn't played maybe the toughest schedule in the world, but 4 wins is 4 wins to start the year, and they would think they won 19 last year, 20 the year before that. They lost a bunch of guys, and it hasn't stopped them so far. So, Jeremy Ballard seems to do a really good job there, playing at a high tempo, and putting teams in space and making them pay.
Yeah, you talked about those. I mean, anytime you can get a win, it is a big deal. So definitely want to acknowledge that. Rice also started off to a 4-0 start. Hasn't played the stiffest competition yet, but we take all wins we can get. We'll have one of their assistants on for a brief moment as well. Marshall also 2-0, got off to a great start. And like you said, FIU, I don't think Jeremy Ballard gets the credit he probably deserves for what he's done there in the short amount of time he's been there, to be able to kind of flip that program around and get 20-win seasons like he has. He's done a tremendous job and off to a great start again. So shout out to those guys. So what is our other team of the week of this region, Kev? I'll let you talk a little bit about them. If you remember, if not, I can remind you. Wink, wink.
I think we went with Western Kentucky. Is that correct for kind of the team of the first 2 weeks?
We went with the official out of the Southeast was Western Kentucky and Winthrop. I was actually off on my Mercer, so we gave Mercer their love. That's okay. We'll throw them in there too, just as a bonus. So since we had Coach Coomer on, he probably my bias towards him probably made me say that. But Winthrop and Western Kentucky is who we went with out of this region, and we'll throw Mercer in as well. Talk a little bit. Well, we talked about all those teams. We'll go West region now, and we'll go straight to the American Conference. One of the better teams playing in the country is Houston. So let's just talk about this conference real quick, the American.
Yeah, they've balled out. Shout out to Quantus White for the job he did to win a close game late against a high major team in South Carolina with their top 2 coaches out in Kellen Sampson with there was a contact tracing issue, and obviously Quentin Grimes playing at a high level, Tremont Mark playing at a high level. Both those guys continue to get to the free throw line at unbelievable rates. Tremont Mark took 12 free throws in a game. You just don't see freshmen getting to the line at as high a rate as he has, but his current free throw rate per KenPom is 116.1, which means he's taking more free throws than field goals, which is incredibly, incredibly impressive. So they're 4-0. SMU out to a 4-0 start. Big-time road win at Dayton on Saturday. The first 3 wins were less impressive, but to win on the road and come back late in that ball game was big. They got 21 from Kendrick Davis, their terrific point guard, and still getting healthy. I know they're waiting for Iorinai to get healthy and get a waiver. He's a guy from Oklahoma State who would really help them as a rim protecting big guy. But that's a win that could move the needle. And from there you got some other UCF got the doors blown off them against a pretty good Michigan team. Don't hold that one against them too much. And how about Wichita State? I mean, they should give a shout out to Isaac Brown for getting his first win. They beat Oral Roberts in a tight one, and then turn around and lose a close game in Missouri. So Isaac Brown's got to go on and a bunch of guys out in the opener, and so once they get everybody healthy, I think they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, and East Carolina 3-0, sitting towards the top of the league. They of course haven't started conference play, and Tulane 2-0 as well. SMU and Houston seem to be right now the clear-cut teams that are at the top of this conference. Houston has played extremely well. You talked about the coaches being out, but they also had Sasser, their starting point guard, was out. They also had their, some would say, the projected preseason player of the year, and Mills was out as well. So big-time culture win for Houston. They are, I'll go ahead and spoil this one the right way this time. They are one of our teams of the week of the region for how they played just so well and so battle-tested early. And then just to be able to win without all that adversity and get an SEC win versus South Carolina was a big-time game. And then SMU is right behind them as far as competing for this league. Temple has not played a game yet out of the gate. They've kind of struggled to kind of get going as far as the COVID and everything else. We'll go next to in the Southwest region. Let's go Sunbelt. I know you recently tweeted Darrell Walker talking about possibly playing Arkansas with Little Rock. Love Darrell Walker and how he leads the program. Talk a little bit about this league. They're obviously the preseason favorite. Talk a little bit about this league.
Yeah, I would love that game to happen. I know. I think Coach Walker was asked about it in a press conference. He said, "Y'all send us a text. We'll see what happens. We'll see if that game gets played, but it'll be a lot of fun." I think Georgia State lost to a very good Mercer team earlier this week, but rebounded with a road win at Charlotte, who's going to be a top half team in the CUSA. It's a really nice win. I thought that, obviously, I was impressed by how South Alabama competed. I thought that they really took one. They took a punch early and they were down 22 points, I think, in the first half, and fought back and hung in it for 40 minutes. And their guard play with Michael Flowers and David Walker and Tyreek LaCure was really good. And so those are guys that are going to be really, really tough in this league. And so I'm excited to see them once they get into conference play. And otherwise, I mean, it feels pretty standard. I think Texas State got 3 wins in the past since we got it going. I know they couldn't turn it around and beat Mississippi State, but beat A&M Corpus Christi, beat Incarnate Word. So a couple wins for Terrence Johnson. It's a good thing for him, and he's getting it going. So it's a fun league top to bottom, and we're always looking forward to seeing what they can do. I know they have a couple games coming up this week that should be interesting. I know App State plays at Charlotte, which should be a good game, and then they have Tennessee a little bit after that. So should be some fun battles.
Yeah, absolutely. Look forward to seeing when this league gets started, kind of going toe-to-toe with some teams. I'd like to give a special shout-out to Coach Berg over at Georgia Southern, brand new head coach, former assistant at Texas Tech, is off to a 3-0 start. And, biasly, I have a couple of former players playing for him. Grant Weatherford just got going and got healthy. But Caden Archie, former TCU transfer that played for us when I was at UTEP, has played really well for them early out of the gate. He got his waiver, and he's playing at a high level. He looks like the guy that we thought he would be when he signed at TCU. Had a game winner, I think, in their last game against USC Upstate, if I'm not mistaken. So he's played well. Congratulations to them on their early start. So we'll shift one more league, and then we have a special guest coming on, another undefeated team in college basketball. We'll shift to our last team in the region. Actually, we have 2. We have SWAC and Sunbelt. So we'll go SWAC first, and then Southland Conference. We'll go Southland last, but we'll bring in Trey Montgomery from Rice after we talk about the SWAC Conference. So talk a little bit about the SWAC, really, and then we'll bring on our guests.
Yeah, I mean, Texas Southern's doing what Texas Southern does. They go on the road to Wyoming and they beat Wyoming. It's a big time win against the Mountain West program. They also beat St. Mary's. It's impressive. They didn't beat St. Mary's. Excuse me. I'm an idiot. I can't read. But they hung in that game for 40 minutes, and they got some talent with Michael Weathers and Galen Alexander, and they're gonna be tough. The big news this week was a waiver. Cam Mack got his waiver approved at Prairie View A&M. He's a kid who averaged, I think, 12 points a game at Nebraska. Very, very dynamic kid with the ball in his hands. Can really attack the basket. Was going to go to Stephen F. Austin, then transferred out, went to JUCO, spent a year, or committed to St. John's, then flipped to Nebraska when their assistant left, and was a good player for Nebraska. And so I think he'll be a really, really good player in the SWAC. So excited to see what he can do in that league, without a doubt. Kind of like we said with the MEAC. I mean, there's a lot of teams out on the road playing bye games, filling the budgets, and I think that's just gets you battle tested for the league. So
absolutely, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with our guest, Trey Montgomery from Rice. I want to take time to acknowledge one of our partners, Rising Coaches. Every coach wants to rise in their career in one way or another. We're all looking for professional development, access to tools, and relationships that can help us grow and help us advance in our career. Rising Coaches provides just that. You can visit Rising Coaches at www.risingcoaches.com. Their memberships are just $10 a month and provides a genuine community to help you grow and advance in your career. I'm sorry, so please forgive me. I said Trey Montgomery from Rice. I meant Trey Montgomery from Penn. We have our Rice guest coming on next. I'm still getting this whole the ones and twos down, Trey. So you got to forget. I'm not quite as smooth as you are, man. But we're glad to have you on. Really excited. Obviously, we know you have a challenging. We're all dealing with challenging COVID and have different things that we're presented with, and you guys may be presented with some of the hardest challenges, not being able to play. So just wanted to have you on and kind of shed some light on the Ivy League and you guys' program, and just talk a little bit about what you guys are doing. How was it when you got the news? Just how you're kind of sorting through all of this whole time now that you guys can't play this season.
Yeah, y'all can hear me great. All right.
Yeah, we're good.
Yeah. So it's been difficult to start off with. I'll be honest with you. It was a tough break, especially being the first conference to cancel last year and being kind of the last to be introduced back to basketball. It was difficult, definitely difficult to communicate with our players and everybody. But for the most part, I think our guys took it on the chin pretty well. I think they were more upset in the way that they found out as opposed to that they found out, to be honest. But all in all, just trying to stay creative, trying to stay on top of our guys and making sure that they're okay. As all college coaches know, the product, the most important product that you have is the product that, you have currently, which is the current players. And so just making sure our guys are safe and healthy, making sure that they're continuing to work out and continuing to do the things off the court that they need to do. And then most importantly, just being able to make sure that they're continuing to be good characters and connecting with them.
Yeah, you talked about the hard part was not finding out, but how you found out.
Yeah.
You don't mind take us kind of through that. I know it's probably tough to keep talking about this subject because it's not really going away. But people, you guys are able to give some type of strength and hope and how you've handled it, because everybody's dealt with a different hand, and how you guys are handling it is important for people to hear and people to kind of know that story. So if you don't mind sharing, that'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, the coaches were, we all kind of, I guess you could say, see the writing on the wall with certain things happening and this, that, and the third. But to be honest, we all were pretty optimistic in the fact that maybe somehow they'll be able to pull it out. But to be honest, as time went on, you kind of start to hear and see things and feel. And so when we got the news from our administration and from, the conference leadership, it came as it was kind of like 50-50. You kind of knew it, but you kind of was hoping on the same end. Whereas some of our players, we probably found out the true news maybe about an hour and a half before our players did. And, of course, there are people connected. And so they started to hear things on Twitter and hear things on social media and hear, word of mouth, people calling, maybe texting, whatever. And next thing some of the players, by the time that they got to the meeting with our leadership, they kind of already knew and they were a little upset. And, you gotta have to tell them that's part of the nature of the game. That's part of the business. And, when it comes to certain things like that, but at the end of the day, that's out of your control. But I mean, to be honest, it was the inevitable. And I think for the most part, our guys are handling it well. And I'll say this too, is because, they really are, because we're in the Ivy, there's a huge academic component. They're really knee deep in a lot of things that they're doing off the court as well, whether it be internships, whether it be, academic stuff, projects, not to mention this is the final portion of the semester. So there's a lot of things going on with them, as well as trying to keep up with their family and making sure that everybody's safe and well. So at the end of the day, I mean, we try to look at it as, this is all a privilege still. This is an opportunity for us to continue to live healthy, to be able to be around family, friends, people that are close to us, and still try to do the things that we need to do. And ultimately, there's a bigger goal and a bigger picture. And so you can't really cry over spilled milk. You just got to keep moving forward.
Yeah, Coach, appreciate you joining us. I was curious, I've heard from a lot of coaches in the past that like the season is so busy that it's hard to follow the rest of the world. So I'm curious, with a year like this where you guys aren't in that same grind of playing every single week, and obviously you guys are busy, but what are you doing, watching around the country? What are you learning from being able to watch more games throughout the sport?
I'll tell you this before anything, I've really kind of OD'd in the fact of really being a husband and a dad. I'm right now I'm a kindergarten teacher. My kid just started kindergarten, so right now he's eating a ham and cheese in the kitchen right now and some Doritos. So I'm a cafeteria worker as well. But I tell you this, I've really been taken aback for a minute because I've actually became a fan again. You know, when you're so busy scouting and recruiting and doing this and traveling and really getting into the grind of college basketball, you forget how to be a fan sometimes because it's so robotic. And now I'm having a chance to watch some of these high level games in which, you know, normally you wouldn't get a chance to watch any of those games because you play on the same day. Everybody's playing on Saturday, so you can't really watch those games. And you get a chance to really look and, you know, catch some X's and O's and see what guys are doing, what coaches are making adjustments with, and just how people are adjusting to the times right now. I mean, you know, you got probably about 40% of the games being canceled or postponed. And so you're looking at how people are battling through different levels of adversity, whether that be staying healthy, whether that be being on the court with limited practice, limited players, limited access, weird travel, you know, crazy schedules. People are having to pick up games after like 2 or 3 days. And so you're looking at all of that and you're just really seeing and appreciating the resilience of all of these student athletes and coaches and their staffs and programs. And so I think, you know, looking and seeing overall at the landscape of what college basketball is, I think that it's going very, very strong. But at the end of the day, you know, with COVID-19, you never know how this thing's going to turn out. So I'm optimistic that I get to watch basketball and be a fan again.
And I'm curious what the, you know, reaction has been from recruits. You know, obviously you can't speak about anyone in particular, but, you know, I'd imagine that guys understand the decision, but, you know, what's been the feedback you guys have heard on the trail? Has there been any pushback? Like, oh, why are you guys the only ones not playing right now?
Not too much. To be honest, I think guys really understand it. And the reason why is because they're going through it right now. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of high school seasons that are canceled, a lot of leagues that are playing limited. I know in certain states they're having to play with masks. They're restricted to certain amounts of travel, this, that, and the third. So they're going through it just like we are. And so for us to sit here and say, you know, we're the only ones going through it, we're you know, that's a bit naive. And so they kind of understand it. And they're, you know, they're not 10 years old. They're 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. They see what's going on. And so for the most part, you know, we really don't get that pushback. And you know, and you got to understand too, especially from us, I can only speak from us, but we're only dealing with a certain sector of all of these players. You know, I don't get to hear, you know, what honestly, most of these kids are doing. You know, there's only a select few that, you know, we actually have the opportunity to really recruit. And that's because of all the other parameters that are around our recruiting base. So to be honest, not really much pushback. It's business as usual. As the quote says, recruiting never stops. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're just going to keep pushing forward. And these student athletes have been a breath of fresh air to talk to, actually, and hearing some of their stories with their families and everything.
All right. Last one for you from me. Any funny stories you got from, you know, maybe the last several months of coaching via Zoom, or even before that from your time? I'm sure you've been on the road, done a lot of stuff in your career. What's one funny story you can share with the audience?
Honestly, man, I have a bunch of funny stories that I'm not going to share on here.
That's the common answer. That's the common answer.
You know,
you can do it. Tell us a funny story of you and fatherhood. You said you're now full time, almost in that. We got the Doritos. We got your little one in the other room. You're a kindergarten teacher. Maybe tell us a funny story about that, because I'm sure that's probably even better than the basketball ones anyway.
Oh, beyond. I mean, look, everybody, you know, thinks their kid is the smartest kid in the world, and rightfully so. I truly believe that my kid is really, you know, above the curve when it comes to like the way he thinks. He's just a different level thinker, and he's only 5. And I'm not trying to toot his own horn. He's just he's smarter than me already. The other day, you know, it was kind of funny. We were going over his shapes. He had a shape assessment. And, you know, it's one of those deals where the teacher would ask, like, what type of shapes does he know? And to test, you know, which ones he knows and which ones he doesn't know. And it's not a right or wrong. It's just so they know where they're going. And to be real, I said, hey, man, you know, I basically was like, hey, man, look at that diamond shape over there. He goes, Dad, that's not a diamond. That's a rhombus. And I was like, oh snap, like 5-year-old teaching me about polygons and all this stuff. And I'm just like, man, where did the world go? Like, I'm totally, I was lost for words. At that moment in time, I knew that I'm on my way down, when it comes to the intellectual stuff. But all in all, kids say the darndest things, and it's been really, really fun just trying to trek through this adventure with my son.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So much respect for you, Trey. Thanks for sharing the story. Thanks for coming on and just talking about what's a really hard thing to talk about. But as you said, there's the guys at your school are there for much more than just basketball, as all of college athletics. But doesn't mean we don't love it. Doesn't mean we don't miss it. But I know you guys are going to continue to be innovative and keeping those guys engaged and making this thing bigger than basketball. I'm glad you get to be a even more engaged dad. I'm glad you get to be an even more engaged fan. I'm sure you're going to come back with all kind of notes and trick plays, and Penn will be ready to rock and roll. See, there you go. Penn will be ready to rock and roll, man. So thanks.
Got about 5 of those, so
you're undefeated. You're undefeated. So any last words you got before you go, and then we'll let you run, man. Thanks so much.
Nah, man. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys having me on, and I just implore everybody to just make sure that they stay safe. That they obviously practice everything that they need to do as far as making sure that they're healthy, they're well, and just blessings to everybody around the country and around the landscape of college basketball, and to you guys and your families as well.
Yep. Thanks so much, man. Best success in fatherhood and taking those notes to take your program to even another height next year. So thanks so much, Trey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, Trey Montgomery from Penn, first-class guy, great coach. Obviously, you can see him as a father. So excited to have him on today. We're going to jump straight into our next guest. And before we go to Coast and keep going through conferences, Coach Van Green from Rice is our next guest, and we'll welcome him in. Coach, how you doing, man?
Great, man. How you guys doing?
Doing well, man. Thanks so much for coming on and joining us today. We wanted to give love to Rice. Not everybody always wants to do that. We know you guys haven't maybe had a ton of tests early on just yet, but to start out any year 4-0 and get off to a good start, especially given the circumstances of what we're dealing with, you're just trying to figure out how we can play games and get to 13 so you can be eligible for the NCAA tournament. So just talk a little bit about the program, a little bit about the start, if you don't mind.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's always amazing just to be able to play games during this time. Like you said, there's so many games being canceled, so many teams wanting the opportunity. As I was listening to Coach Montgomery, these guys aren't playing. I was in the Ivy League. I know how it is to not have basketball, but still have to deal with the rigor of the academics. It can be challenging. So for us to be playing, I mean, we're grateful in that by itself to be 4-0. Like you said, the competition, win is a win. Our guys are coming together without having your exhibition, without having the scrimmages. We needed more to kind of get us prepared. So to be 4-0 is great. Our guys are having fun. Coaching staff, we're enjoying this. So we're just grateful to be where we are.
Yeah, Coach, I wanted to thanks for hopping on. I wanted to ask you a little bit about scheduling in this time. And I noticed that you guys have a couple of home and home series in the non-conference with Incarnate Word and with Houston Baptist. I'm just kind of curious how that came to be, and how much that will prepare you for the conference season when you're going to be doing the back-to-backs in league play.
Absolutely. I think my head coach, he's always kind of a visionary and trying to prepare the team for what's coming ahead. I know last year playing in the Bahamas, we played in back-to-back games, multiple games to kind of get us prepared for what was coming later in the season. And so going to Incarnate Word to be able to play 2 games back-to-back is very similar to the way we will play in conference. To have these 2 teams that we play one time, a couple weeks later, 10 days later to play them again, that's what we will see in conference. So to be able to play Houston Baptist, Incarnate Word, I mean, multiple opponents, but they always kind of do something different than what they did before. Can you adjust? How may they adjust? The scheme of basketball is something that coaches truly enjoy. And it wasn't supposed to be like this. Obviously, because of COVID, we had to, alternate, maneuver, try to figure it out. But I know we had a big non-conference schedule. We were traveling a lot more. But when COVID happened, we wanted to keep our guys safe, try to keep them bus rides away, didn't have to catch on a flight. So it worked out. Incarnate Word, Houston Baptist, they looked out for us, said they'd be willing to play us home and home. And, we're grateful for the teams, joining us and trying to keep our guys safe.
And certainly I've noticed the impact of a transfer you guys added in Travis Evie and got him a waiver, and he's been really good so far. He was a guy that I had kind of highlighted in the offseason when I was watching tape.
Sure.
Talk about what he's brought to you guys so far. It seems like he's really made a big impact right away.
Absolutely. Travis is a phenomenal young man. I mean, he coming from that background, being at VMI, to be able to come over, just his mindset and his appreciation for the small things just go a long way. Speaks a lot about his character. He doesn't ask for much. He's very low maintenance. He always comes in, put his head down. He works. Coach, what you need? Yes, sir. No, sir. He's been phenomenal off the court. On the court, obviously, he's proven that he's a great basketball player. He provides a different perspective for our guys to be able to benefit from. On the court, he's a phenomenal player, being able to shoot the way he does, playing defense the way he can pressure the ball. At this point, I think he only has 2 turnovers on the year through 4 games. So he's been tremendous for us. Hopefully, that success will continue. We'll need him in this big game on Saturday. So hopefully Travis can light it up, hit a couple threes that help us out.
Coach, talk a little bit about your head coach, your staff. What kind of makes Rice unique? We know you talked about coaching Ivy's, Rice High Academic School. Coach James Harden in high school, was at Arizona State, done a great job there. They're a high scoring type of team that can get buckets. We know that from
Absolutely.
coaching the league. I was at UTEP and we coached against you guys, and Coach Parra does just such a great job offensively, putting pressure on you, scouting wise, and how you play. So just talk a little bit about Rice basketball a little bit, and then after that, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about your career and how you ended up where you are.
For sure, man. I think our staff is very unique in that we always build this family atmosphere. You hear every program say that's the culture. We're a family. But to be able to see the guys that come back and work for Coach Parra, myself, I played for him. He was the associate head coach at Rice. When he got the head coaching job, gave me an opportunity to come back. I came back. Derek Glasser, another assistant who also coached at James Harden at Arizona State. Greg Howell, the video coordinator, coached in high school. And then the other assistant, Vince Alexander, him and Coach Parra coached against one another for 20 years as high school coaches back in Pennsylvania. So to be able to have a staff that we've all been knowing him for years and years and years, for us to be, with him every day, from him mentoring us and helping us throughout so many different things throughout all the years. I mean, we're grateful to be able to come back and just be able to serve up under him and hopefully learn. Like you said, he has a basketball mind. The different things that he throws out there at the defense, and that mindset is always challenging for other coaches to adapt. I mean, even on the defensive end, he has a zone that we don't always run, but that zone is intricate in itself. So, Coach Parra is a phenomenal basketball mind. I love this staff. We're all very close. We have a lot of fun together, and it's a joy to be able to come in and work with the people that you love. As far as myself, coming from Alabama, I was able to go to Columbia undergrad. So I served there 4 years. The basketball didn't go, as well as I hoped. But when I graduated, I had a year of eligibility left. I was thankful for Coach Hartman. He left Columbia and came down to Rice to coach, and he brought me with him. And so I was able to come down to Rice, serve as a graduate assistant after I finished playing, stepped away, and then ended up coming back as a video coordinator. Now it's my 3rd year as an assistant. So I'm grateful for the people at Rice University, the administration, to the coaching staff. They gave me an opportunity. I'm loving it, and hopefully we can get some more games up under our belt, man.
Yeah, for sure, man. We'll let you kind of run with this one. We know that right in the city of Houston, George Floyd was from Houston. Recently, the high schools, Duncanville and Yates, kind of did a tribute to the first annual George Floyd Classic. Being in Houston, being a guy, I think you may have done a great interview with Pete Sweathelm, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I did.
Talking about some social justice things. So if you don't mind, a little heavier topic, but important topic in college basketball, important topic in our country. If you don't mind, just share a little bit of your thoughts or anything you feel comfortable sharing, just kind of on what your thoughts are on the social justice and kind of our time and space that we're in.
For sure. I mean, I think it's difficult because to put it into perspective, we're playing a game. We play basketball. Our guys play basketball. They're doing what they love. But then if you look at the grand scheme of what's going on in our country, we are a country that's very divided right now. And we saw that with this recent presidential election. And our guys, a lot of these young men, they have feelings, and they're not able to articulate what it is that they're feeling or what they're going through. So I think it's our job as coaches to be able to help them decipher through these feelings and be able to take action in what they're feeling in a productive manner, not going out and doing anything reckless that can cause embarrassment to their families, to their name, to the program, but to be very strategic in the way they go about things. So something so small, we made sure all of our guys were registered to vote. They were registered to vote. All their voices were heard. The entire coaching staff, we all went out to vote. That's something that we all did collectively. These young men, my coach had different, people come on and talk to us throughout the summer, from Jay Billis to CJ McCollum, just having different people, Mark Jones, to just come in and kind of help us kind of navigate those feelings. Like, all right, this is what you guys are feeling. Let's be open and honest here, and let's just talk about it. A lot of these young men coming from very different backgrounds, they want to make a change. They want to know exactly how to do it. Being at a place like Rice, place like the Ivy League, you're around the elite minds of the world. And to be able to have that platform, to use that for good, is something that I hope we all can do to get us all on the same page, because at the end of the day, we all are in this together as a country, as a program, as citizens of this world. Until we come together collectively, we won't see a lot of change. And for the guys of color that sometimes feel like they're discriminated against or they don't have a voice, for them to be able to come into these offices, this university, and feel welcome and loved, that's all that we wanted to do. So we're grateful for that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Keep up the great work, Coach. Good luck the rest of the year. Good luck staying safe, man. Thanks so much for coming on. Tell Coach Parrow we said hello, and keep fighting a good fight, man.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time. You fellas enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Yeah, great stuff there from assistant coach at Rice. Glad to have him on. Appreciate him taking the time. Always good when you can have guests and get the college basketball perspective from the coaches themselves. So we'll take a quick break, and then we'll finish going through the conferences coast to coast.
Welcome to All Access Coaches Corner, where our mission is to serve coaches, share their stories, and spotlight their programs, with our host, Brian Burton. A longtime successful college basketball coach, former championship collegiate point guard, husband, and father, Brian is now the Vice President of Rising Coaches Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Alliance for men's basketball, an empowerment coach and founder of B3 Legacy Sports and the All Access Network. Sports broadcaster and host for All Access Coaches Corner and All Access Sports Media, Coach Burton is now using his successes, experiences, and connections to be a point guard in the sports industry at all levels, with a mission to help others to further their success. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and join us in the All Access Coaches Corner.
All right, we're gonna kind of zip through. We got the a few comments we'll jump in on real quick. Show some love. Clipboard Crazies, thanks for the love, my man. Definitely appreciate your support. We got Creative Coaching Flames. Coach McKay always has Liberty ready. Yeah, we definitely know that. Coach McKay is their team is as good as any at the mid-major level. They've been tested early, probably had as tough a schedule as anybody early, and they're doing a great job as always. Look to see them making another run as they often do. And then Darrell Robinson, appreciate you guys as always. Thanks so much as well. So going back to the Southwest, last conference we didn't talk about in this region, which is the Southland Conference. Stephen and Boston, the projected winner, got off to their first start. Abilene Christian still continues to be on the roll. They played a couple games as well. Now they're 5-0. So anything out of the Southland Conference you want to touch on before we kind of move on?
Yeah, I mean, a 5-0 start for Abilene is a big deal. And we talked about them last week, and we're going to show them some love again. They blew out Tarleton. I saw that was the first time they'd beaten Tarleton State since 2009. So that's a big-time win. And we talked about last week just, how impressive it is that program is where it is right now. And they get an awesome test on Wednesday against Texas Tech. Those are two teams that really get into you defensively, and it'll be a good test for Texas Tech, honestly, to see how they handle that level of pressure. I think Stephen F. Austin, obviously, a slow start in terms of who they've played, but 3 wins on the board, and I think that'll continue. And honestly, it should continue into conference play. I know they have Arkansas State coming up in a week or so, and Louisiana Monroe's got some pieces, but I think they're in good shape to stay in control. Otherwise, not a ton to add. I think it's got a lot of teams playing bye games and developing. I saw Nichols just shut down, unfortunately, due to some COVID problems. I know they had been on the road all week in California, so presumably that's where that's rooted from. And Hopefully they can get healthy. I know they're losing a game against Baylor coming up on Tuesday that they were looking forward to having. But, get them healthy, and hopefully they can play in once conference play gets going in a couple weeks. So, thinking of them, hopefully they can get back on the court soon.
Yeah, we'll make this one quick. They did start conference play. Stephen F. Austin played McNeese. It was kind of a back-and-forth game. Stephen F. Austin found a way to win that one, so they're 1-0 in conference play, the only team that has played a conference game yet. And then you mentioned Abilene. They played Texas Tech. Coach Beard actually coached Joe Golding. They're like best of friends. A lot of mirror images in those two programs. I mentioned Coach Tanner was on last week. The similarities between him and Mark Adams, kind of being defensive specialists. And then the coaches both having a similar style of how they kind of lead their programs. So look forward to that matchup. Definitely shout out to Abilene. I sent a text to Joe Golding actually to tell him. So Lone Star Conference used to be two rival or opponents. I can't even say rival because Abilene Christian didn't win very often, but Charlton and Abilene Christian used to be D2 in the same conference. So a lot of the wins that you talked about came from those days. And so I told Joe, I reminded him of a great pregame speech he gave about coming in the back door, and we're going to leave in the back door. We're coming in the back door, and we're coming out of here with a win. Well, we didn't come out with a win. They were really good back then, and happy for him that the tides have turned. Kind of like you said, for the program to be where it is, I'm always going to give extra love to the guys that I know closely that I work for. Naturally, you got to deal with it if you watch the show, but he's just done such a tremendous job, so he deserves all that he's getting. They're the other team of the week in the region, along with U of H, getting off to great starts, two great programs. We will move a little bit West Coast. Now we'll go straight to the West and go back to the Midwest here next. But let's go to Big West, WCC, and Big Sky in any order that you prefer.
Yeah, let's get it going with the WCC. I mean, obviously Gonzaga's Gonzaga, and they got a big win over West Virginia, and thankfully Jalen Suggs is healthy. After that, looked really bad, an ankle, lower leg injury. Obviously the big concern whenever you have something like that is Achilles, and he was able to come back in the game, which is awesome news. And AIE was terrific, but to me, the real story in that league was BYU to go to Mohegan Sun. And to bounce back the way that they did against St. John's after they lost a big one to USC early in their time there. To win that game is massive, and then to turn around and get a good win against Utah State in a game that is always tightly contested on the road against a team that is tough to play against in a usually very difficult environment. I think it's going to be underrated that, even without fans, those places that are just tough places to play, like the Spectrum, are going to remain tough places to play, and so that's a big time win. Our guy Brandon Goebel is looking vindicated with his guy Gideon George, who continues to ball out. He had 13 points and 15 rebounds against St. John's. He's honestly the best player on the floor in the second half. That kid is special. Excited to see his continued development, but. He didn't gas him up in my DMs for a couple months for no reason. The kid can play, so excited about him, and they're working it out. I mean, they have a bunch of new guys, and they're working it out. I think Mark Pope's doing a really terrific job, so they're in great shape. San Francisco got a good win over a very solid Nevada team. That's one to look for. And poor Pepperdine. I mean, Pepperdine was leading big against San Diego State. I think they led by 16 at one point, and San Diego State finished really strong and came away with that victory, but that's a good game for Pepperdine to compete in. I think they'll be a tough out in conference play.
Yeah, and Pepperdine's had two games like that. They played UCLA as well early in week one, and they've definitely, they have a good team. I think they're going to – these battle tests early that you don't come out on the front side of non-conference are usually the wins that come in conference play. So hopefully that battle testedness will help those guys move forward. And Santa Clara is also – undefeated team with Gonzaga at 4-0, so definitely want to recognize those guys out west as well in this league. Let's talk about the Big West and the Big Sky Conference really quickly, and then we'll move to the next region.
Yeah, Big Sky. I wanted to shout out, of all places, Southern Utah. They started conference play in the Big Sky this week for some teams. They had the home-and-home series to get that started. They played 2 home games against Montana, who I picked to win the league. And Southern Utah won both of those games by a single point. That's big time, and a 2-0 start for Todd Simon out there is huge. Tevian Jones, the Illinois transfer, has been really good for them early. He had 19 in that win. He had 17 against Loyola Marymount earlier in the year. So he adds a different dimension for them. John Knight, a point guard. Dre Morin is a senior guard who can really shoot the ball. So, they're in good shape, and they should be a factor in a wide open Big Sky.
Yep, absolutely. And then talk a little bit about the Big West and what you saw out of that conference as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's been a league that I think has had some bumps getting off the ground. I know UC San Diego had some opt-outs. They still haven't played a game. Hawaii hasn't played a game. Fullerton hasn't played a game. But how about UC Riverside? Yeah, that was Tuesday. We last recorded on Monday. Coach Magpayo goes to Vegas and plays Washington in a neutral court game, and they beat Washington, and it wasn't even close, really, honestly, for most of the way. They won it by 15. Washington only put up 42 points on that stingy defense for UC Riverside. Jock Perry, their transfer from St. Mary's, was awesome at 21 points. And look, I don't want to get too philosophical here, but UC Riverside has been open about the fact that they've considered cutting all sports and dropping out of Division I. And you want to send a good message like, hey, we shouldn't be doing anything like that. Go win on the road against Washington. Go beat a Pac-12 team, and they did that. So I'm hoping the program stays up. They're on the right track with Coach Magpayo, and certainly before him, Coach Patrick did a good job there as well. So a program moving in the right direction. They deserve a lot of love for beating a talented Washington team, even if they're in a bit of a rebuild.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about them. I'm glad you mentioned them, Coach. We have we had a bonus team of the week in the Southeast with Mercer, and we're adding another bonus team of the week out of the West region. So we have Gonzaga as a team of the week, goes without saying. BYU, after losing that game to USC, to bounce back and show Coach Pope to again show how he leads the program and is able to just continue to steal that culture. They're 5-1, so they're also a West team region of the week. And we're going to also add an additional bonus with Riverside just because of the circumstances. I mean, you're talking about shutting down a program altogether, and Coach has a baby, misses a game, gets his first win also, and then goes and beats Washington the way he's done as the first coach of Asian descent to be a Division I head coach. So just continue to break records. Shout out to Coach. Definitely want to recognize them in that program. We'll move kind of going from west all the way to east. We have not done the Northeast yet. We're halfway down our conferences. We got about 30 minutes left. So we're going to kind of sprint over to the Northeast and let's talk about the American East first.
Yeah, certainly. Been trying to work out again another league that has had a lot of teams get off to slow starts with COVID issues, but it's UMBC got a win under their belt last week. Had a little bit of time off. They beat St. Francis. That's a nice win. Really not a ton. Stony Brook was competitive in the first half against St. John's. Kind of got blown away late. Won a game in overtime against Fairfield. They're probably the biggest team to shout out. They're a team that's playing a lot of young guys. They are really young. They had I think all 5 starters transferred out after the year. They love their big kid, Muhammadu Gay. I was talking to their staff over the summer. I think he's going to be an impact guy. He had 5 blocks in that win over Fairfield. And then they're transfer heavy. Frankie Policelli from Dayton is a shooter. Tyke Green from Manhattan is a guy that they're relying on. And then the JUCO kid, Juan Felix Rodriguez, has been a significant addition. He had 21 points and 5 assists in that win over Fairfield. He had 11 points and 4 assists and 3 steals against St. John's. So I think as he goes, they will go this season because they are so inexperienced. And if he can continue to step up, they'll be in good shape to potentially compete and outperform my, I think, 8th place prediction for the Sea Bowls this season.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to shift straight to the Big East, getting straight diving into that conference. Xavier has probably played at a higher level as anyone. We can lead the segue talking about them and then talk about anyone else in the Big East that you think really kind of deserves to be talked about.
Yes, no start for Xavier is massive. I thought that, quite honestly, I wasn't huge on this team going into the year. Not even sure that I've changed my opinion too significantly. They've, played a lot of close games against teams they probably shouldn't play close games against, but they're winning those close games, and they finished off with Cincinnati. And, shout out to Travis Steele for heading over to the local college bar, Dana's, and dropping $2,000 on the bar for the kids to celebrate. And, that's what college basketball is all about. And they're playing a lot of young guys. Dwan Odom, their freshman point guard, has been impressive. I'll shout out Brian Griffin, their grad transfer from a D2 school, Mercy College. I think Mercy College with Brian Griffin, where he averaged 20 and 15. They went 5-20 at one of the lowest levels of D2, and he bounced up to the D1 level. He had a bunch of mid majors interested in him, and it sounded like he was going to wind up at a MAC program. And then Xavier jumped in late, got him on a phone call. He committed, and he has been a massive impact guy for them. He's blocking shots. He's shooting 73% at the rim. He's been a really good energy big for them, playing 15, 20 minutes a game. So big time ad for a team that's now 6-0 and getting in lots of games, which is what this is all about. They're already halfway to that 13. So big shout out to Xavier. Villanova with an awesome win on the road against Texas to bounce back. Marquette with a big time win over Wisconsin. UConn gets a big time win over USC. And Creighton gets his big test this week when they play Kansas. So really big week overall for the league, and overall a pretty successful one, I would say.
Yeah, Big East has been they've taken advantage of some of these early matchups. You talked about some of these tough challenges early on. I said 5-0. I meant 6-0. They just played another one. So Xavier leading the way. Creighton 3-0. UConn 3-0. St. John's 4-1. Probably not expected to kind of get off to that same start, losing the transfer like LJ Figueroa, but they've kind of figured out a way to get some things going early on too. So like you said, Marquette with a big win in state. That's always a big one. And then Villanova to get that win against Texas, it was a great win too after Texas just winning the Maui Invitational. So we'll move from Big East. We will shift to Northeast to the CAA, and then we'll go to the MAC.
Yeah, Drexel, I know, got off to a solid start. They're 3-1 now. They played 2 games against Quinnipiac back-to-back at Mohegan Sun. I think they were supposed to play Bryant in one of those games, and then that got they got switched up because Bryant had an issue. And so they just said, all right, Quinnipiac, you want to stick around and play us again? They said, all right. So they played 2 games, won them both. Then beat Cobbin State over the weekend. So a nice start for them. They have an awesome point guard in Cameron Winter that I know they're very excited about. Otherwise, I mean, not a ton for them. I thought James Madison unfortunately had to shut down. They had a game scheduled. They were going to get Maryland to come to their gym. Unfortunately, couldn't happen. Sign of the times. Otherwise, Charleston got blown out by Furman. I think that says a ton about Furman. And Hofstra played a competitive game with Iona before the Gales pulled away. We'll talk a little bit about Iona a little bit later.
Yep, for sure. We'll go straight to the MAC MAAC next. Before we kind of talk about Iona, let's talk a little bit about the MAC.
Yeah, I mean, the Gales got their big win over Hofstra after competing for the first half against Seton Hall and then really folded. I think it's going to take time still. I'm not convinced that they can beat the Siena team, although Siena did lose a guy that they were expecting to probably be in the rotation, or at least on the outside you would have expected him to be in the rotation. I know they've been dealing with the stuff for a little bit, but Dana Tate was dismissed from the team. So that's a loss for them, a 6'8" guy who's pretty versatile, but a culture adjustment without a doubt. And I was playing a bunch of young guys. Ryan Myers, their freshman point guards, played a lot of minutes. Dwayne Karoma, who's I think Belgian. He's from Berlin, from Germany. He's playing a lot of minutes. Nelly Jr. Joseph, who's an NBA Africa guy, has been really good at a double-double against Hofstra. So it's going to take them time. They're going to be better in February than they are right now, and they're not too bad right now. St. Peter's has come back to earth a little bit, but lost to Maryland. They were in that game. It was a little closer than I think people thought it was. The score will indicate it was a little closer, and then their best player, Casey Nadefo, got ejected. That really, really hurt them. Otherwise, don't have a ton. How about Marist? I guess would be the last shout out. Marist is 2-0. They swept Binghamton in a little weekend series. So that's good for them. And hopefully some of the other MAC teams can get it going. I know Siena's supposed to get it started this week against Fairfield, and Monmouth's getting out of quarantine soon. Canisius is going to be back soon. So hopefully we'll get it going with some MAC hoops.
Yeah, shout out to them with that 2-0 win. Anytime you can win a game, period, but then you can beat a team twice. Really hard to do in a short span of time. So shout out to Marist and their 2-0 start, the only team in the conference right now with a winning record. And then Iona is one of our teams that we'll recognize as the team of the week in this region. Went and got a big win at Hofstra. I'm not sure. It was at Hofstra. Yeah, at Hofstra, where they won 82-74. So great win for those guys kind of getting going. And our other team, Xavier, as our team of the week as well in Northeast region. And then one more conference we want to recognize before we move on to our next region is the NEC. Anything that stood out to you from the NEC? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough. I know it's another league that has been a little bit stop and start. There's a couple teams that are not going to play non-conference games. I know that we're still waiting to hear what we'll get. I know LIU Brooklyn was not playing its non-conference schedule, so that's something to keep an eye out for without a doubt. I thought that Bryant with their 2-1 start, they beat New Hampshire this week on the road. High energy game. Their point guard, Michael Green, continues to ball out. It's a sophomore who can really play, super shifty, and had 23 points in that ball game. Peter Kiss had 22, the transfer from Rutgers, who began his career at Quinnipiac. They're athletic. They're versatile. They look like a CAA team or even an A10 team when you line them up. They have 6'4", 6'5", 6'6" across the board on their guard spots. They have quick guys. They have shooters. So they're a very interesting team to watch in what should be a very competitive NEC race.
You actually saw them play against New Hampshire in a high-scoring game. Coach is doing a great job. They definitely have some talent. And they gave a great run, if I'm not mistaken, to Syracuse early. And
they did, yeah.
Boeheim had definitely had some comments about that. So shout out to Brian as they continue to kind of build for this season in their momentum. We'll go straight to the Midwest. Go Midwest region. Let's go straight to the Horizon and the other MAC, MAC, to start out.
Yeah, certainly. One team that did not have a great week in the Horizon League, Cleveland State. They gave up. They got into the record books for the wrong reason. They gave up a 40-0 run to Ohio to begin the late first into the second half, which. Look, everybody has a bad game. It happens. Look, Dennis Gates is a good coach. He can get it figured out. Honestly, I think one of the teams that deserves the biggest shout out as a team that didn't win a game was Detroit. They played 2 bye games against Michigan State and Notre Dame. They played both of them within single digits. They were coming off a COVID shutdown and, were really, really, really competitive in 2 games. And honestly, I think they might have won that Michigan State game had Bull Cool, their big guy, not fouled out. He was awesome for them. He's, a very, athletic 6'7" kid who could switch, who gave them a lot of problems. But they got a lot from Matt Johnson, the St. Bonaventure transfer. Antoine Davis is one of the most gifted scorers in the country. So Mike Davis is a squad, man. They might be better than I think a lot of people pencil them in.
In
the Horizon League.
Both coaches, Mike Davis just did a tremendous job when he was at Texas Southern, and he's been at UAB and was at Indiana as well. I mean, definitely a proven veteran head coach. And his son, like I said, is a bona fide scorer. They just needed those pieces kind of coaching that league against him. They needed those pieces around him, some of that experience. Coaches used to having those older guys when he was at Texas Southern, those transfers that can come make an impact right away. And he does such a great job thriving with those guys. So great start to them. Even though they haven't got off the wins, I think the wins are definitely coming because they're competing at a high level and putting themselves in position. And then Dennis Gates, of course, coach of the year in the league last year. He'll get it going. Like you said, sometimes you just have those nights. And unfortunately, it was a record-breaking night on the other side. Let's talk about the MAC MAC conference and anything that you liked or stood out in that league.
Yeah, I think we're going to highlight Bowling Green as a team of the week, and they're certainly deserving because they beat App State, who's a very good mid-major program. They went on the road and won that game in overtime. Gave up a buzzer beater to send it to overtime, and we're very composed and found a way to win that ball game, and then beat Buffalo, a team that has kind of become the benchmark in that conference the last couple seasons. Got 33 from Justin Turner, their star guard, and that was enough to beat Buffalo. So Bowling Green on a good path to win this league and be in good shape moving forward. So I think they would be the primary team to highlight. Obviously, Ohio is having a nice year. They were the team that had the fun in that crazy long run, the 40-point run. And with Jason Preston at point guard, they're going to be very, very good. Toledo also got a conference when they beat Eastern Michigan on Friday night after beating Cleveland State. And they were also very competitive in their 3 games at the Xavier MTE early in the season. They lost by Xavier to 3 and Bradley by 2. So this is a good team as well. So it's going to be a very competitive league.
Yeah, let's go to the valleys. Let's talk Ohio Valley and Missouri Valley in the Midwest. Anything that kind of speaks to you in those 2 leagues out of the 2 valleys in the Midwest?
That's a great question. I think, Murray State bounced back. I know they had that tough start to lose to Middle Tennessee. That's not something that they expect, but they bounced back well with a win over a Missouri Valley team in Illinois State. So that's big time for them without a doubt. I thought Belmont losing to Samford is a little bit surprising given what we know about that program, but Bucky McMillan's getting it going. So that's something that we'll kind of continue to track. I thought that Eastern Kentucky was also a team worth highlighting. That Monday night game when they took Xavier to overtime, I was very, very impressed with their team. I thought that Wendell Green, their freshman point guard, was tough as nails. He's still learning to shoot the ball, but he's athletic, goes to the rim, plays fearless, and made some big time passes as well. And Cooper Robb, the transfer, has been good. Michael Moreno, who's their four-man, has been solid. Trey King hit some shots for them, hit that buzzer beater to send it to overtime. He's an interesting player. So they play really, really fast and put pressure on you. So that's going to be a fun league. And then good to see Loyola Chicago get back on the floor. I know they played against, I think, a Division II team this weekend, and they have Chicago State coming up on later this week was the plan I saw, and then some other regional games before we get into league play. I think the main story there continues to be Drake's 4-0 start is certainly worth mentioning. Beat Omaha this week. It's a good one, and then a non-D1, and that's a story. And then Northern Iowa with the 1-3 start combined with the injury concern with AJ Green, who is dealing with a hip injury. I think the prognosis, they have to decide whether he should have the surgery now or wait. And if he waits, he can play out the year, but it'll be in a lot of pain. And if not, he'll be done for the year. So if he's out for the year, it would be a massive, massive blow to the Missouri Valley and massive blow to college basketball. That's a really fun team and a really fun player.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, Missouri Valley hasn't quite got going. We talked about that last week. Bradley's had some tough games early, Northern Iowa as well, but they haven't quite been able to turn those early games into big wins just yet. But always a super competitive league, one of the better mid-major leagues around. Let's talk A10 as we finish the Midwest. One of the best mid-major conferences. Another team that we featured last week, or we talked about, and had a special guest from Richmond, and they beat Kentucky. They will be our other team of the week as they jump into the top 25 polls this week. And let's talk about the A10.
Yeah, I think Richmond got the clearest understanding of what this season is like. I mean, they're on top of the world, and they get some COVID tests back on Monday or Tuesday, and all of a sudden they got shut it down for a little bit. But fortunately, they're back in less than a week, and they're playing today against a very solid Wofford team. So that'll be a good test for them, and certainly a good start. I thought that Rhode Island had a really nice win over Seton Hall. First off, a great opportunity to get them at home, and Fats Russell continues to play at a really high level. They're getting another opportunity. They're swooping in. This is news broken during the show. So this is a big time scoop, actually, but I didn't scoop it myself. Someone else did, of course. But URI is taking Louisville's place playing at Wisconsin this week while Louisville deals with the COVID problem we alluded to earlier. Hope is that Louisville will then play Wisconsin this weekend, maybe on Sunday, to give them a little more time to do more testing and see where things stand. But as of now, it appears that our friends over at URI are going to get an awesome quality win opportunity on the road against the Wisconsin Badgers. Otherwise, don't have a ton here. Slow start for LaSalle in 3. I think Ash Howard will get it going eventually, but it has been a grind, and that's a tougher job than I think a lot of people realize because of some of the budgetary stuff. Dayton got on the board with a win against EIU, and then a tough loss to SMU. I think once Jalen Crutcher gets it going, they'll be better. He struggled in that game against SMU, And I've been impressed with Chase Johnson, the Florida transfer who struggled last year, but has been impactful so far this season. So they need him, and he's lived up to the hype so far. That's a good sign for the Flyers.
Yeah. So breaking news there. Hopefully Rhode Island can jump in there and make some noise. And our two teams out of the Midwest region are Bowling Green and Richmond, teams of the week. So our last region, if I'm not mistaken, it's Monday. We're starting the week. We're making some new headway on Coast to Coast. So we're still working out the kinks myself. But Rocky Mountain is the last region that we haven't talked about yet. We'll go straight for. So this is the region that has the Summit League, the Mountain West, and the WAC. So we'll go Summit League first, and then go to the Mountain West and the WAC.
Yeah, major shout out to South Dakota State, right? I mean, we talked about this off the air, but I don't think people understand how hard it is to keep a program moving in a positive direction and just not miss a beat when you lose a potential NBA player in Mike Daum and a high major transfer that everyone in the country wanted in David Jenkins. And they win 20 games last year under a new coach in Eric Henderson. And then they're well on the way to doing that again this year. They just beat Bradley on the road, a top 100 caliber Bradley team. They beat Iowa State on the road, a high major club, and they really controlled that game most of the way. They had blown out Utah State while at the Crossover Classic. They're one of the most efficient offenses in the country. They have tons of shooters. They have two good big men in Doug Wilson, Matt Dentlinger. So this is a very, 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 very good team that I would not want to see come, March 20th when they're playing against a 4 seed. And that's not a team that I would ever want to be staring down next to me. They are very good.
Yeah, one of our teams of the week in this region. So definitely shout out to them. And like you said, always hard to lose those guys of that caliber and to be able to still get off to a great start to the season just shows so much about the leadership and the guys in that program and the character that they have there. Let's move to the Mountain West. San Diego State, the big one, like you talked about, against Pepperdine. They got a win the week before against UCLA. There are our other team of the week out of this region. Let's talk a little bit more about Mountain West. You mentioned Wyoming taking a loss to Texas Southern, but they also got a win against Oregon State yesterday. And then we also have Utah State, BYU. They had their matchup. We've had all kind of stuff in the Mountain West happen as well. So anything else that sticks out to you from the Mountain West?
Yeah, I think that Pepperdine win for San Diego State. I mean, I hate to do that was really important for the NCAA tournament on December 6th. I do, but you have to think about it. That's my job to think about it. And avoiding a loss to Pepperdine that probably would have wound up outside quadrant 1 or 2 by the end of the year is very important. It's significant that they find a way to win that game. You don't have to have your best stuff because now they don't have another game until conference play, and really not most likely until late in conference play or middle of conference play, late January when they play Air Force and Wyoming back-to-back weeks, where they'll have games that are significantly detrimental for them to lose from an at-large perspective, because they have Arizona State, BYU, and St. Mary's coming up to wrap up their non-league, and all those are good teams. So just finding a way to win that game against Pepperdine, so important. And so they'll go into those final 3 non-conference games, 4-0, excuse me. They'll have an opportunity to, get another, needle-moving win or 2 in that stretch, and then go into conference play. So I think those are the things that I'm always looking at. I was looking at Seton Hall, Penn State. It's a massive game yesterday because Seton Hall needed that game to avoid going to 1-4 and setting themselves up poorly for an at-large just by the number of wins they're going to need to get in, just total number of wins and not finishing at 500 or worse. Those are little things, but they're very important. And that was very big for them to get that win. Nevada 3-1, couldn't beat San Francisco, but a solid start to the year for Steve Alford and company. And then Wyoming, they blew that game against Texas Southern. They led most of the way. They folded late. But how about the win to go beat Oregon State on the road? That's an early program win for Jeff Linder, and they have a freshman point guard in Marcus Williams from the state of Texas that they signed. They had him at Northern Colorado, and they got him to follow him, and he has been awesome. He had 11 points and 5 assists against Oregon State, 20 points and 6 assists against Incarnate Word, 17 and 4 assists against Texas Southern, 24 and 8 assists against Mississippi Valley State. So not missing a beat heading into college basketball.
No, he's a talented kid and could have went to, they do such a great job evaluating Linder, DeWeese, that staff, and they identified him at Northern Colorado. And seeing what he's doing in the Mountain West, in the Wyoming uniform that's in the Mountain West Conference, he would have really done some great things in the Big Sky Conference. But he is the projected Rookie of the Year by myself and Eli on our Mountain West Insider Show. He's a really talented kid. He could have went a lot of places after the recruitment opened up, like a lot of guys who signed early. But kind of goes to credit to the state of Texas again, just having so many diamonds in the rough and so many talented players that kind of go celebrated. Then they get to college, and you're like, where did this guy come from? He's going to have a special year, and look for him to do big things at Wyoming. Definitely want to give a little bit of recognition to and best of luck in getting healthy. There's 3 teams in the Mountain West that play the game. Colorado State is not, New Mexico, and San Jose. I believe Colorado State is supposed to get going this week. New Mexico obviously dealing with some really challenging stuff. Just New Mexico State, who we'll talk about in the WAC next, actually living in a resort in Arizona because what is set up in their state, their governor is not allowing them to work out in groups bigger than 5. And if you come into the state to play, my understanding from talking to James Miller on one of our other shows on JUCO Hoops Insider on All Access Sports Media, he talked about the fact that if you come into the state, you have to quarantine for 14 days. So there's no games being played. I'm not exactly sure what the Lobos' plan is, but
they're just outside of Lubbock. They're practicing at South Plains.
Okay.
And I think they're hoping to play games there for the time being, but they don't have a game on the schedule. Their doctors wanted them to wait a little longer to play to get the players, physically ready. Whereas New Mexico State said they were ready to go a little bit earlier. So who knows? They're hopeful to play soon.
And then what about San Jose? We know much about them. I've not done a good job of reaching out to them and just kind of checking in or following. But San Jose, is there any news there?
I think what happened there was they've had some, as they were ready to go, I think they had a game scheduled against maybe Pepperdine, and they canceled because just as they were getting ready, the Santa Clara County restrictions came in. Santa Clara County is now saying that no contact sports can be played. That's not something that's been followed by the rest of the state of California, but it's hurt Stanford and San Jose. San Jose was willing to move their football team briefly to practice at Humboldt State, which is in a much more rural part of California. And they were able to get some practices in during the fall when they were prepping for the season when they were dealing with some Santa Clara County restrictions. So my guess is at some point they will move, but these non-conference games just realistically aren't that important for San Jose State to play. They're not competing for an at-large bid. We'll just be kind there and say that. Like, They want to get ready for conference. If they can get 1 or 2 games in, maybe on the road, and play those games, and then get into conference play, hopefully those restrictions will subside. I think it was like a 3-week order, so by late December they'll be back up and running, hopefully in that county, and be ready to go. So those are the little things, and that's the big X factor. I've always said that, like, you can get over almost any other hump. You can add more testing to your protocol. You can change how you travel. You have cases, you can cancel games and move them around, whatever. You cannot control a state government or a city government. They have to make the rules, and they should make the rules. Like, I don't think any of us are sitting here saying like it's not the health department's job. Like, it is their job. And if they think it's not safe, it's not safe. But like, that's the one thing that people can't control. And if you ask an athletic director, you ask a coach, things that they can't control are never fun. So they're living and rolling every single day with it, and hopefully they can get on the court soon.
Yeah, control the controllables, and when you can't control them, sometimes it can definitely be frustrating when it's beyond your control. Kind of like we talked with our coach from Penn, Trey Montgomery, talked about. They can't even play games. So the Rice coach kind of referred to that as like, hey, we're celebrating all victories and all games we can have. And I'm sure San Jose State would love to be in the position that Rice is in right now, that just have played some games and get on the winning side of things. So definitely pulling for those guys, hopefully get going and get some things to go in their favor. Last conference with this region is WAC. We have Grand Canyon, who's sitting at 3-0, New Mexico State sitting at 2-0, and then we have the Dixie State Trailblazers sitting at 2-0 as a new transitional team from Division II to Division I. Shout out to Andrew May, one of the assistants. So let's talk a little bit about the WAC before we kind of recognize our we already have recognized our 2 teams in the region for being the teams of the week. So let's talk about the WAC conference.
First off, we're talking about celebrating games played. Seattle's played 6 of them, so give credit to them for getting on the court early and often. They went to Long Beach and UCLA this week and played 2 really competitive games. Couldn't find a way to win those games, but particularly that Long Beach game was a tight one. I think they'll be competitive in this conference. I think one of the fascinating things with the WAC, and this is, again, minutia, but I think a lot of people would be interested by it. You're in a league where the team with the biggest budget in the conference, Grand Canyon, can buy home games and buy several in a season. They bought Grambling and Mississippi Valley and non-D1, and I think they have usually a couple more. I know they really bought their schedule a couple years ago. And then you have a team like Chicago State that has to play almost all bye games just to fund the program. I mean, the disparity from the top to the bottom is significant. And I saw Chicago State over the weekend when they came to Northwestern, and they're competing. They're playing really hard, and obviously I think they only had 10 guys travel and just really fought, and was impressed by their compete level. They never really quit into the second half, they're down 30 or 40, and I think that'll bode well for them. But GCU off to a good start under Bryce Drew. We'll get some bigger tests coming up with Nevada and Arizona State coming up later this week. And then, certainly Dixie State with the 2-0 start to their Division I time, including a win over North Dakota this week. It's a nice win. And Tarleton State as well. I mean, that's they won a non-D1 and then played A&M for 40 minutes, which I think says even more about the Abilene Christian win over the weekend over them. But they were in that game really late against Texas A&M and really competed. So was impressed by their drive, and Montre Gibson, their point guard, was hitting some big time shots.
Yeah, another Texas kid, Montre Gibson, played at Waxahachie High School. Underrated guy, another JUCO product. And Billy Gillespie plays coaches against his former assistant, former A&M assistant. Billy Gillespie used to be the head coach at A&M. Buzz Williams was his assistant. And so Billy Gillespie makes the return back to College Station with his team to play against his former assistant coach, and had him on the ropes, to be honest. There was definitely a point in time where it felt like they were going to win the game and have this kind of Cinderella story, and A&M was able to close it out late. And like you said, it does give even more credit to ACU and their win against Tarleton. But Tarleton will definitely be competitive. We know Coach Gillespie always has competitive teams and has been at the highest level as a coach himself. So that gives the wrap up for our Coast-to-Coast coverage, going through all the conferences. And we look to just now really just kind of close the show and talk about what's upcoming in our last kind of 5 minutes or so of the show.
Yeah, I think the big thing that's upcoming is the ACC Big Ten Challenge. That's always a big time test. So over the next on Tuesday and Wednesday, we'll have those games, and Illinois Duke is a big headliner. I think Virginia and Michigan State playing as well. It's a major headliner. Add in a game like Creighton, Kansas, that's not even affiliated with that on December the 8th as well. And you've got a heck of a couple of days of basketball coming up. So I'm very, very excited to see what we've got coming up. It's a quiet day today. Good chance for everybody to kind of reset their gears. I know there's a couple mid-major games that I'm looking forward to. San Diego State playing Arizona State. That's a good upset potential win for them. Teams getting in action this weekend. I know there's some conference games for a lot of the Northeast leagues, the Big East, the MAC, playing some conference games, which is very exciting. And everybody's diving in. And one of my favorite rivalry games as well, Iowa State, Iowa. Unfortunately, no packed houses this year, but that is always a fun rivalry game. And those teams don't like each other very much. So hopefully, we'll see if Luka Garza can outscore Iowa State in the first half, like he's outscored the last two opponents in the first half. That guy is unbelievable.
Yeah, let's talk about Luka Garza real quick before we kind of touch on some other teams. I mean, there's been some guys that have played at a high level. He's probably the preseason favorite and probably the early going favorite so far as player of the year. Any performances player-wise, we know how much you track this stuff. Any performances player-wise that really stands out as some of the best play in the country other than Luka Garza, and you can talk about him too, and any surprises so far?
Yeah, I mean, Garza has been unreal. I think we all expected him really good. We expected him to put up crazy numbers. He has put up crazier than crazy numbers. Again, the last two games, he has outscored his opponent in the first half. Like, come on, folks. He had 30-9 in the first half against Western Illinois. And again, Western Illinois is Western Illinois. We'll see what he does against North Carolina and Iowa State this week. But he's a stud. He is so much fun to watch. I thought Omarui for Oregon was very, very impressive. Wanted to mention him. He has taken steps forward. Drew Timme has taken steps forward. Austin Reeves at Oklahoma has been an awesome player. And then I think, from the mid-major world, Alex Barcelo at BYU has been a significant addition, or not addition. He was there last year, but his growth has been, massive to watch. He's remained very efficient, which I think is the biggest thing. There was concerns there. Mid-major transfer up to the high major level. Keve Aluma has been awesome for Virginia Tech. Was really a rotation guy, a great defender at Wofford, and followed Mike Young and developed a ton in his sit-out year and has turned into, a very terrific player. So those are some guys that I've just thought deserved a little love, and there's too many to name. So come at me in the comments on Twitter if I suck and forgot your favorite player.
Oh, there'll be plenty more to acknowledge. So some of the games coming up this week, even just Tuesday, gets going. Kevin kind of talked about the Monday kind of being a day to recharge a little bit. We got Kansas Creighton, which is a big time matchup, which I think Kev already mentioned. Duke, Illinois on Tuesday. Another kind of bounce back for Illinois to show that they still belong in that kind of top 5 elite company. And Duke being number 10 is actually the underdog in this game. So looking forward to that one. And then Iowa, North Carolina. You mentioned Iowa State, but Iowa, Carolina is Tuesday. That'll be a big one. Iowa is now up to number 3 in the country. Carolina definitely wants to prove that they should be there. So you always love those high-level matchups that get going to start the year. So
if you want to test Luka Garza, take him up against that front court. Daron Sharp, Armando Bacot, Garrison Brooks. He will not see a deeper, more athletic front court than you will see in that game. So
no doubt. It'll be a great one to watch. So excited about this week of college basketball. We also got Michigan State playing Virginia coming up soon. Louisville and Wisconsin is coming up on Wednesday. And then towards the end of the week, we have some other games as well. So, yeah, just looking forward to it. Thanks so much for joining us. Again, you can always follow Kevin and all the things he's doing with podcasts and tweets and his website at CBB Central, either on Twitter or on his podcast or his website. And then with All Access, you can find us on YouTube at All Access Network. We'll have it broken down here pretty soon where we'll start being able to just click on the region of the team that you want to follow. We'll soon be making these into podcasts themselves. We'll kind of separate some of the content so you can just go straight to what you want to have. But we're on every Monday. We'll get it rocking and go coast to coast, and let Kevin have some closing words. And thanks so much for joining us in again today.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun as always. Stay tuned to my Twitter page because I have an announcement that's likely to come in the next couple of days that I think everyone will be very excited about. So stay tuned. Can't say it yet. We'll say it very soon. I'm very excited about it. So stay locked in. But otherwise, enjoy your week of college basketball, folks. It's gonna be a very good one.
Yes, thanks so much again, and stay tuned to that page because it will be something good. If Kevin says it may be good, that means it will be good. He's trying to downplay it. So thanks so much again, and we'll see you guys next week.